So, dear audiences, let's start our second seminar of this afternoon. I'm Katarina from the ISOT Helsinki team, and I want to welcome you all to this seminar called The Future is Now, Working with and for Teenage Audiences. And it's organized as part of the program of the ISOT Nordic Dance platform here in Helsinki. We are live streaming this seminar on the ISOT YouTube channel, and that will be also available as a recording later on the website. And it's my pleasure to now hand over to the moderator, Pirjetta Mulari.
Hello everyone, and it's really nice to see so many of you here, because I think that the topic is the most important. We're talking about the future and young audiences. My name is Pirjetta Mulari, and I work as a Chief of Children's Culture in Helsinki, and also as the Director of Annantalo, which is an art center for children and young. And my background is very strongly in dance, so I have been working with dance all my life and still am, although I really cherish the fact that I'm actually leading a house with all art forms within, so it is really quite an interesting perspective, and also for the children and young. And what I have also learned, that dance is a wonderful background for anything, because we guys are team workers. We don't do things alone. So this is something that, you know, we really need to remember that in harder times. I was really happy to be able to moderate this discussion, and I have here 3 wonderful colleagues, and I was thinking that this is actually quite a good group of people in a way, that we have Valtteri Raekallio, who is an artist and also artistic director of his own company, so he can tell about his experiences. Then we have Ella Holappa, who is an artist herself and has been working with a production of Teen within the context of the Center for New Dance. And then we have Roberto Casarotto, who is presenting SHAPE IT, an EU project, which is again a very different context than the others have. But enough of me speaking, so we will actually start with Valtteri. And I thought that also for you it might be interesting that we take a position of a learning process. So what we have actually learned from working for or with young people. And we are talking, but I think that, you know, if there is a really good question, you know, at hand at any point, please raise your hand, because I think that is good. You know, we are such a good number of people that we could really have a discussion too about this. So, Valtteri, please tell about your journey with teenagers.
Yeah, so hi, nice to see everybody. I'm Valtteri. Maybe as a bit of a background, I haven't previously been working with children or teenagers. I've had my company for now 9 years. Next year is a 10 years anniversary, and our philosophy of working has just been to have a very open production structure and just be able to do exactly what we want. So the pieces are quite varied. Some of them are site-specific. We're working a lot with film and different things, but there's a big theme that I've been working with Finnish literature for the whole 10 years period now, and I have been reading a lot all my life, and a few years ago I read this book that just came out of the press by a very young Finnish author. It was his first publication. I think he was 24 or something when he published it, and it was about bullying, and it was a piece of autofiction about his life with a different name. There's a big autofiction boom in literature, and I read it, and I was pretty much blown away by this. I was bullied myself in school for some time very badly, and then I switched schools, and personally I feel that I didn't I didn't believe the bullying myself because I was able to switch schools. And with him, he wasn't able to switch schools, so he started to believe the narrative. So he kind of like bought into this idea of shame, and shame became a really huge part of his self-image in a way. And he was able to write that, open that with text really well, this physical memory of shame. And I got very, very interested in that and started to think that I want to make a performance about this. And I was first thinking of doing it with my own professional dancers. And then thinking it forward, I thought that there's no point in putting adult people, like it didn't make any sense. And I've been lucky to work for one of the dancers I've been working most, has a day job as a teacher in a high school. She's a dance pedagogue in a high school. So I started the discussion with her, and it's an arts high school, that could we actually do this with the students of her school? And she got very interested in it, and we had a quick discussion with the principal of the school. And this is pretty much how this started, that we had access to a school, and we had a mole in the system in a way, because they gave us very open hands to do what we needed. It was more problematic actually to get the school building, to work in a school building. But this is how we started to work, and we could maybe now play the video. So yeah, I can talk a bit more about them.
The schoolyard is full of squeals, running, kickabouts. A girl is in the same swings I used to sit in many years ago, next to the same rowan tree. The same shredded clouds are floating in the sky, the same blazing blue. I'll never be a child again. I can never run like a child, wait for the summer holidays like a child, look out of the class window like a child. My steps become slower when I think about it. I'm on my way to something uncontrollable, something so great I can't get a handle on it. I don't know how to approach it. My heart is still in primary school, leaning against the walls next to the main doors, scared.
So with Mirva, the dancer who I've been working for a long time, who was their teacher, we wanted to create a project that it wasn't aimed at children or teenagers who already had a background with dancing. We wanted to open it up to the whole high school and ask that anybody who wants to join can join. And in the end we got 14, which then went to 12 teenagers, and we started to work with them for pretty much a 6-week period. Because of COVID, we had some on and offs there, but pretty much we had 6 weeks. That's Mirva, is the blonde-haired woman. Yeah, and quite fast, like artistically, because of the dancers weren't educated, the teenagers weren't educated in dance, I got very interested in their own movement, and I've always been working a lot with improvisation tasks and creating material from that. So I made like small, like traditional dance fragments, like my movement in a way, but we were mostly working with different kind of improvisation tasks and filming them and talking about those tasks and those ideas and reading the book and having like certain tasks from those ideas from the text. And for me, this was one of the things that it was, of course, a bit of a slower way to approach. But after the first few weeks, they really started to open up. And then I somehow got this idea that we are actually onto something special. And this use of improvisation and this will to put the young people, young persons as themselves on stage, as like subjects, not as objects of an artist, but to really actually collaboratively create something which is somehow in their, like these questions of bullying is now in their present life. And my artistic team that I brought 7 like professional artists, my set designer and others, we had those in our past, and we were talking about our memories and our experiences. We weren't that much asking how they feel, what's going on with them, because Mirva is the only one who actually has a strong pedagogic background, and we took two assistants who's been studying dance pedagogy, but we didn't feel like it's our place to start. It was not a therapy session for them, but it was, and I think, well, for me the two biggest learning experiences in a way was this, that you can actually very well work with improvisation with young people. It's not a professional skill, it's about play and creativity that everybody has, even though personally I feel that the school system is very efficient in killing it. but I think that we caught these young people at that time, that they still had this sense of play in them, and that's how we started to work. And the other big takeaway from me was actually what you said, Pirjetta, in the because I brought like 2 young pianists from the music conservatory, and then I brought professional artists, and we were having pretty much all the artist discussions with the students in the same room. So we were creating the whole thing with them, and this kind of team effort was something that after the whole project they were very like grateful or blown away, but that they could see that this is actually how art gets made, that it's just about like discussing with people, and they were in the discussions, and they were like giving ideas, and also like getting this, that with some of the ideas we took them and ran away with them, and some of the ideas were maybe we can't take that because of, so we were really open, going back and forth with the whole artistic process. And for me this was something new and something that I would definitely like to explore again, like taking this to another school, working with other teenagers now, that because we have kind of like the structure of the performance and the texts are ready, and so now we don't need such a long time. But it would be very interesting to try to do the same thing with another group of teenagers and see what kind of direction the performance takes and the communication takes with other kids. And somehow this also has to do with this sustainability idea, that this is of course not a fast way of working, but personally I feel that in artistry we maybe shouldn't try to be sufficient or like with art. It's also about like having an excess amount of time with people and ideas. I mean, we should try to save some resources, but personally as an artist I don't think I should try to save my time in that way, that it's actually we were very lucky that the school gave us so much time with the teenagers, because I think that time was the only way to build the relationship and get them relaxed enough so they could actually start to improvise and play in somehow in a childish way with the imagination, but still like creating a piece of art with professional artists, which was, we had I think 16 performances and it was sold out, and the Finnish broadcast television system made a documentary about the thing, and it was like a real huge project, but still we were treating it as it was a game. It was playing together, like, and that's how art gets made, through communication. And yeah, but that's maybe somehow my take on the thing.
Yeah. Did you have time to reflect actually after the process and after the performances with the young, that you know what they had really got out of the project, or did you have that kind of evaluation possibility?
Yeah, actually that came out really naturally, because we were, as said, we were filming this for the Finnish TV broadcast system. So we had a few days of filming where we were just, it was during some weekends, so the school building was closed. So we had a lot of time and we were having pizza parties there with the, and that was the best way of, we didn't have a structured like, but those were the best days of like having a lot of time and just after the performances were gone and we were just doing it for the cameras and taking it easy, and then we had a lot of time to talk and have discussions in small groups and with the whole group. And with Mirva, their teacher, we spent a lot of time thinking how to create a safe space or a safe environment in the rehearsals, and I think that was something that we spent a lot of time and energy thinking beforehand, and I think that was very that went well. But something that I wasn't prepared or didn't prepare the performers, the high school students to that, because of the text that the audience is hearing in the second part where they're walking in this dark school with the headphones where the text is coming and the dancers. So a lot of the adult audience were crying, and because the performers are very close to the audience members, so we had our first test audience before we started to run the real shows, and luckily that happened there already. So then we started to have this way of debriefing after each performance, like talking a bit that what was your experience with every like teenage performer, because yeah, well, as you can see, the audience is really close, and the school building was dark, but they have these small lights with the in the headsets. So yeah, so that was something that luckily happened already with the first test audience, because then we started the process of debriefing after each performance. But still, it was well, the performers said that it was very interesting to see that have this kind of instant feedback that the performers can actually have an effect on an adult that you don't know at all, and you can see that what we have created together is actually moving him or her in that way.
Thank you, Valtteri. I think we can actually move on to Ella. I think I have many burning questions, so we can see if we have time or for your questions. But I would now invite Ella to tell about your journey with teen.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Ella, and well, my journey with teen is a long one in some ways. In 2017, when Janina Rajakangas, who is the choreographer of the performance Teini, which English translates teen, I was a performer in this version because I was still a teenager then. And it was a performance on Zodiac stage. And after that, the life of teen continued. There were new teenage performers, some still old ones from the 2017 version. And I was not a teen anymore, so I was not on stage, but I was asked to be a part of this teen tour that now was not happening on Zodiac stage, but around different schools. So the same performance essentially with new performers, but in different schools around Helsinki. And what I was doing was a sort of audience engagement person. So me and Arina, who was also another performer in the 2017 version, but not a teenager anymore, was doing audience engagement with me, and we were doing these like pre-performance and post-performance talks with the teenagers who were coming to see the performance. And also for those schools that wanted, we were doing different workshops around the themes of the performance. So I have a really interesting journey in the sense for myself that I started out as a teen myself, performing in a context of contemporary dance. And on stage, I really remember thinking like, look at me, adults, yes, I do have something to say, and it's just as valuable as anyone else's knowledge. And then I went to becoming, quote unquote, adult myself, and I was like, oh no, I can't relate to these teens on stage anymore. I have completely lost something. But I really enjoyed still being a part of it. Like, it was very interesting for me to really have the sensation that I did lose something. Like, I couldn't lie to myself that like, oh, I still really understand what it is, and because I had moved on from that. But it felt really important to be a part of that and to actually understand that even if I have experienced something and I can in some way understand that's not what I am now. And I think that was definitely for me something, this sort of idea of where knowledge is coming from and how we relate to it because of whatever our age, our experiences in life, and what that is. And I actually really like this thing that you were saying about the sense of playfulness and the word professional, like put together, because I think that's something that was really, you could see it really being questioned throughout for myself when I was performing, but also later on when I was looking at the teenagers. And also, I mean, sometimes the teenagers themselves wouldn't want to call themselves teenagers. It's another thing just to point out that we talked about a lot. But more about the actual tour setting, because that was very different to the performance that we did. We went into the setting of a safe environment, in the sense of everyone knew in a theater how to take in a performance and has some sort of understanding of what are the rules that you're supposed to follow. And then when we went into these schools where we would always build a stage, you can see this orange mat that has been going on in the photos, and we would build it in usually the like sports hall type of area in the different schools that we went into, and sort of integrate ourselves into the space of the students at the schools. And then the students would come in, and there was a lot of sense of like, whoa, this is our space, you're coming into our space, but then also an understanding that you are definitely giving us something, and a moment of, there was a lot of confusion of like what was happening, and by confusion I mean some like movement and like reactions and everything. And that was something that me and Arina really wanted to emphasize for all of the students, that that's okay, because these moments of when you experience something potentially new, and for many people in the schools that we went to, we talked to them before each performance and would sort of try to understand what people were feeling in regards to the performance happening. Like, did they even know it was happening? Did they have any experience of dance or contemporary dance? And if so, what were their feelings about it? And usually there was a lot of interest towards what was happening, and I think this is also due to the fact that we were in their space and in their sort of reality of their everyday. It was like sort of one class after another, but also a little bit of hesitant energy to know how to react. And then we tried to say that, you know, whatever way you react, that's fine, because all reactions are okay, but holding on to a sense of respecting other people. And this was then a really big thing when after the performance we would talk all together, the performers and the audience members, to then actually meet the people that had made you feel a little bit weird. And for me, those were really, really special, because in so many ways we have an understanding of, like, at least myself, on how we're supposed to behave and how we're supposed to ask and how we're supposed to comprehend and understand. So it was really, really interesting for me and Arina to try to navigate on how to make the discussions work in a way where the moment that we were in, that there could still be a sense of engagement without an expectation of, like, oh, that wasn't engaging or whatever. Usually the teachers that we met at schools were the ones who were having the most, like, problematic time understanding what was going on, and they were like, oh, we're so sorry about our students, and we were like, oh, it was great, like, did you not see they were, like, so engaged in reacting to things? Yeah. Was there something else? Maybe what I was surprised about was how much I could see that there was a lot of conflict inside many people watching the performances. Like, it was a very, very hard situation for many people to just be in a room with so many people. And, like, sometimes we would have like 100 students watching the performance, and many teachers were saying that, like, due to not, you know, being in contact with people because of COVID, then it was really a new situation for so many people to just sit next to other people, which you could really sense that it was like a weird situation, or not weird, just very overwhelming. That for me was very surprising. But yeah, it felt also then sort of good to be doing this, but at the same time thinking, like, oh, maybe this at this time was a little bit too far for someone. Like, it was too much. But yeah, maybe in other times it wouldn't have been such a big moment in that way, to gather together with people. Yeah.
I remember the teen where you were performing in 2017 at Zodiac's stage, and I think that at that time it was probably one of the first works for a long time that I had seen that, you know, there are really young performers that are really professionals in many ways, and it was amazing work. And I actually thought that I want to ask you that, what do you remember the most meaningful from that process? That what left with you after that? Can you sort of summarize?
Well, I remember enjoying working with the other teens, because maybe that is also something that yes, in schools you do like group work and stuff, but then that there is a space given for you with your peers to actually together discuss and think about things. And I wouldn't say that this is for everyone, but this was for me personally a really important feeling. And then, as I said, like really the feeling on stage, looking at all the people that already held some understanding on what their position is in the seat, and looking at people on stage, it felt really empowering in a way to then be like, yeah, like exactly, you know. So I think that definitely, and I think, yeah, for me it also, for a long time I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and honestly don't know if I still know, but in the context of like, should I get into dance or whatever, I think it was definitely a thing for me that was like, oh, okay, this really is something that I would maybe like to do. Yeah. But not only the idea of performing, but the actual like sense of getting to understand so many things through the context of what a performance is. And I really like enjoyed that aspect of performances, on how they can be sources of knowledge or moments of understanding or learning. So yeah.
Thank you, Ella. Then we go to the last story, and it's SHAPE IT. It's an EU project that I have also the pleasure to be part of, and we have Roberto who will tell more, but I want to tell a bit about the project before that. So SHAPE IT is a project where we work with choreographers that have not worked for young audiences before, but have the will to search for the possibility for encountering the young and maybe adapt their work accordingly, but it might not be needed. And this adaptation or work is made through residencies, laboratories, and so on, so that these choreographers really work with young audiences, supported by our partners. And we have actually a wonderful possibility that we have all the partners here. So it's Marketa from Tanec Prague, it's Leah and Christina from The Place, and then Roberto from Bassano and me. And I think that we will start, before Roberto talks, about a little film that tells about what SHAPE IT is.
Fun and reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's the first time to work together with high school students for such a long time. And I think they can just teach us so many things, like, rather than us teaching them an experience.
What I find very interesting is that the group exists before the experience. And it changes a lot when you compare to organizing the experience within a festival with an audience, a festival audience, whose people don't know each other.
Yeah. We asked them to imagine where this experience could be, if they could tell us like another type of environment. And a lot of nature came out, like to be in a forest or in a park or in a space with less distraction. and also about sounds, like how do animals sound, and I wish to have more sound coming from nature again.
2 days ago, yes, you said something I find very interesting, is how we could identify the natural source of material within the city. How can you identify the natural dimension
Of a space.
of urban space?
Of a urban space, yeah.
Yeah. Because this is a question under the work. In a
It
way.
is. Yeah.
So how can we help them to imagine this space as a natural space, or identify the natural dimension of the material?
Thank you for having me in this panel. What have we learned? What are we learning is the question. I would start by saying that a very important element is the trust upon which everything has been built over the last 3 years, with the pandemic in the middle, and the trust that is generated through years of collaborations among the partners that decided to embark in this project, the trust that was built with the artists that accepted to bring an existing work made for a general audience and bring it in 4 different cultural settings with all the possible language and cultural encounters, and trusting the possibilities to learn and to recontextualize the work every time they would land in a new territory. Trust that we managed to develop with the teachers of the schools that were engaged in this journey, with the parents sometimes of the teenagers that were encountering different forms of works. We've been working in 2 editions with different artists, Linda Hayford and Victor Czerninski, and Masako Matsushita that you saw here in this video, who works with an organization based in France, Orbe, that develops technological supports to generate participative audio-guided protocols or choreographic scores in public spaces. And lately with Joanna Pokova and, sorry, my Czech is really still under training, and Sabine Bochova. Both they're the founders of Pocket Art, a company based in Prague. So we've really developed different forms of reenactment, adaptation, and during COVID time, even using the VR possibilities and the digital space as a place where to meet, where to develop knowledge, where to encounter people that would have never met before. So there's been a huge work in translating practices, approaches in contexts that would vary. And in that context, I would say the horizontality, the horizontal approach has been highly valuable, and the learning process. So there's been a shift in democratic terms in the way we've built these relationships. I would say that during the COVID time, all the limits became actually an opportunity for us to enter in the digital space with an horizontal approach, where the hierarchical structures fell apart and where we could really experience together part of the labs that Pirjetta introduced. We really worked in small groups to develop knowledge. There's also been an horizontal approach in the way we have worked with these artists that, coming from, let's say, a non-young audience oriented practice and experience, they wouldn't bring a knowledge, they wouldn't bring a system of practices, but they had to discover somehow au pair with the participants, with the teachers, with the facilitators, with the staff member, what it means to work with teenagers, and what it means to work with teenagers that are, you know, embodying questions, traumas through the years that we are living with the pandemic and all the rest. So it's been hugely important to have these kind of equal discussions, equal systems of learning, where somehow encountering young audiences has highly informed the practice of the artist. Some of them at the beginning were really skeptical about bringing a work that was conceived for a theater for adults into a context of teenagers. And then with huge generosity, they really invested themselves and really took a lot of risk. In all of this, we have also learned how much care has been generated, both from all the direct parts involved, but also from the participants, the young audience that somehow responded with respect and care to these proposals.
Thank you. Sounds excellent. But I think if you think that this is also a project where many countries are involved, so do you think that this aspect is actually something that the choreographers or artists are really finding quite fascinating or revealing even?
I think it's a huge opportunity for all of us, because we realize how many narratives can be built around a work, how many unpredictable responses you can collect from different cultural settings, how many surprises you may encounter when you present a work. Sometimes you are the first international artist that encounters groups of teenagers and somehow brings a universe in another universe. And I think for the artists we worked with, there's been a huge opportunity to test some practices, to try out some forms of introduction of their works, some forms of collecting responses or feedback from the teenagers. And every time, you know, there were little new information and that could be part of this process of building new knowledge, basically. So the cultural settings are absolutely fantastic. Thanks Creative Europe for supporting and giving us the opportunity to really invest in this research, because we could really invest time, resources, and take risks that otherwise would not be possible.
And I think the internationality also within working with young audiences is quite important, because the teenagers are really globally, you know, all over the place. So it really gives another possibility. Yeah.
And if I may say, in our context, for instance, where the majority of professional artists are all white, working with Linda, who's you know, an artist based in France with African background, gave us a huge opportunity to bring a role model in our context. And we could see the response of some of the students that could see, you know, someone that otherwise is never, you know, inhabiting a stage or a screen or a VR disposal, and somehow bring new inspirations and bring new practices. So it's part of this process of also diversifying what we offer as cultural entities.
Thank you, Roberto. Before I go to my burning questions, are there any comments or questions in the audience? Don't hesitate to raise your hand. I mean, even a comment is really fruitful.
I'll ask about the project that you just talked about, Roberto, about what were the tools, how the choreographers or the theatre artists that had created the work, how did you support them by changing or collaborating youth into the work? What were their kind of tools? Can you bring some examples maybe?
Well, there were many situations, and each of them happen in the specificity of the context. I think if we look at Masako and Xavier, the Orbe team, for them, I think one of the tools was to engage in profound dialogues with the staff members, sometimes the teachers, to understand deeply where their work would land. They had gone through a laboratory that was organized online for the artist, where different experts brought, some tools or experiences which were very inspiring to think beyond what they knew. And then they literally tried, in our context, every morning, because this presentation or this experience was proposed on 5 days on a row, every morning for 50 students coming from high school classes. And so every morning, in dialogue with our in-house dramaturg, but also among their team, they try different approaches. So one day they would do maybe a physical introduction, another day a verbal introduction, and that allowed them to collect their own tools that then they applied when they came to Annantalo. And then after here, they went to Prague, and each process generated new tools.
Hello, my name is Susan. I'm from Switzerland, and I wanted to ask several questions. I'm going to hope to make it
Wonderful.
quick. So,
No worries.
First round to Valtteri. Thank you so much. I already listened to your presentation yesterday, and I was actually wondering, because I think you never mentioned it, what's the book called that inspired you?
Feet in the Air. It has a German title, which is something. I can look it up for you.
No, Feet in the Air is fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to find it.
Yeah.
Thanks. And are you planning on continuing the project, or is there, how do you,
Well, we have one possibility to next summer to do an other city in Helsinki. And then for 24, we're right now thinking with some international partners. But next year is quite tight because it's our 10 years anniversary and we have a lot of different things. So next year is quite complicated, but 24 is something that we are now looking forward. And when we first do it once in another city in Helsinki, I think we're gonna know a lot more how to actually do the like touring version. How much time do we need with the new students now when the core or the skeleton of the piece exists, but we need to fill it with new people and ideas. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. And how many, because that was fascinating for me, that you found a dance pedagogue that works in an artistic high school. How many of these schools are there in Finland like this?
This kind. Well, Helsinki is special in a way that there are actually some high schools that specialize, but it can be, I mean, any school, any high school in Finland can actually specialize to something, whether it's arts or science, and actually it's quite a lot of them around. Mirva happens, I have been actually studying with her, so she's a very special person, you know, being a PE teacher and a choreographer and dance teacher all at the same, but these people exist.
Yeah.
Fortunately, so, because that's always the hardest thing to find, like the key into the thing. And then, Ella, I wanted to ask you, how many schools partook in the tour?
That is a very good question. I think all in all, we probably did. You can check it, the amount, but I'm gonna guess 20. And we had like 2 performances in each school that we went to, unless it was a very small school. But the numbers are out there. You can find them.
But you went all over Finland, or?
It was Uusimaa.
So this area around Helsinki. Yes.
Around Helsinki.
Any other questions or comments? These were excellent.
Hello, I'm Katarina. I work with Pirjetta, but I was not directly involved in Shape It. It was just, I was around it. And there was some comments maybe about the structure. We're talking about how the artists find the young people and how they learn from the young people. But I noticed that maybe in different countries you have different ways to spend time with the young people. Because, for instance, in Finland it was a bit difficult when the artist had decided that they need so and so many hours to work with the youngsters. And the younger youngsters at schools, for instance, or in free time especially, they don't have this kind of times to put in something. And maybe when you're organizing, maybe you should go more in the detail that the dreams of the artist to have like 5 hours a day, working with the same students and doing things, that's a bit challenging for the students. And also that's, But it has been everything that has happened here in Annantalo and in Finland, it's been wonderful, but maybe the structure is not 100% suitable everywhere in the same way, and there might be some flexibilities to think about. And I think also if you're going to do projects with students and schools, and so you know that the schools have so many different way of organizing things, and from the lunchtime to everything, and how the other teachers will give you time.
Thank you, Katarina. So Katarina is working with me at Annantalo, and she has been working for a long time, really. She knows what she is talking, and I think that this is exactly, what we're encountering with these works, that, or how would I put it? When we're making art with teenagers, it really is a two-way street in a way that as an artist, you need to kind of understand that the art that you are doing and making is also, when you work together with the teens, and you really need to make a contract how you work. And maybe this is something you would like to reflect.
Just quickly on the same topic, that this was exactly what I was like blown away with this high school, that we were able to work, that they gave us so much time. But personally, at least because I'm not very experienced in working like this, I definitely need the time, otherwise we can't do it. Because and I think it's also a good idea to try to bring to the school system that not everything is as efficient as teaching mathematics or something, which you can like go piece by piece and it builds on itself. Especially when you're like creating something new, 90% of what you're doing is waste. But this creating this waste is actually the thing where you're building the relationship, and they have to see me fail, and they have to see me saying, I actually don't know. And that's kind of that's how you build that trust for also them to be vulnerable and to be able to ask something, because they see that when you're creating art, the whole point is that nobody knows yet. You're just embarked on a journey together, and of course the captain of the ship has to be able to navigate the ship, but we don't know where we're going. And this is something that the school system, at least in Finland, is not very big with thoughts like this, that creativity, because now they're saying that it's a part of the economic boom and we have to be creative and da-bi-da, and sure, but that's not how it works. It is about waste, but the waste is your life and it's the relationships that you're spending time with people doing something which is still interesting and exciting, even though 90% is waste. It didn't go into the performance. But yeah, I understand, because the school system is so scheduled, it's difficult to take time for a projects like this, but maybe it's possible to do it as an extracurricular, you know what I'm talking about, activity, which is outside of the books somehow. Yeah.
Please. Yes.
Thank you for your observation. It makes me go back to the first question, because I think in this context, you really practice what they call the soft skills: adaptability, flexibility, learning to work collectively to make it happen, and the complementarity, like what might not be possible in a certain period of time of residency during the school time could be possible in another country during the summertime. So you may be able to get the 5 hours of a group of students that could be with you. So this is how we build the tools, and we try to work in complementary ways among the partners.
I think I'll just add that the process of how we worked when we were doing the first version of The Teenager was a year-long thing. So we would, for a year, meet once a week to make this thing happen. And then the next time it was made, I think it was almost a year, but not that long. So there was a little bit of a snip. But still, this idea definitely, I mean, it's a lot about navigating on, like, what are the structures that are there, not getting discouraged about some things that are there and are very hard to immediately change, but still finding a way to work with that. And I think for me, that was very clear when it was about communicating with the teachers on the day of when things were happening, like, and making sure no one is there to make things difficult for anyone. That was a very big thing to remember.
Good. Then there would be a last question there. Yes. Hi, it's more of a adding to the conversation rather than a question, but it's important to share, I guess, that working with teenagers across the 4 countries that we worked with on SHAPE IT, we also worked with other age groups, but teenagers was an element on 2 of the projects, but in particular the ones that had more technology. I think the gatekeepers in terms of schools and structures and the post-pandemic priorities for schools was quite similar across our countries. So I wouldn't necessarily put it down to national differences. But also I just wanted to share other place we have run, and I've been part of it for over 10 years, our youth dance company, and our teenagers as part of that youth dance company have a long kind of relationship with each other and with the artists that we bring in to work. And it's always about managing expectations for the artists, and that understanding that school is very different, because school is compulsory. A youth dance company is a choice. Therefore, I have had over my career more than a dozen conversations with artists who can never see their show until it's finally on stage and everybody has turned up. So there is an incredibly rewarding relationship, fresh, exciting, inspirational, but also nerve-wracking. And I have often had to hold hands of choreographers who don't know what the piece actually looks like. But the energy, as I'm sure you've experienced, the energy the teenagers bring to the stage doesn't compare. And we found that also in SHAPE IT, I guess, the input and the inspiration and the excitement. But it isn't without its perils, is guess what I'm saying. Well, thank you very much, and we have come to the end of our hour, and I thank you all the artists and facilitators and speakers and directors on the stage, and you being a wonderful and active audience, and also the streaming audience. And I have to say that every day that I walk into the house where arts are presented for children and young, my heart just melts. I love my job for working for young audiences, and I really wish that many of us can share the same feeling. We are here, you know, available for talks and anything, so have fantastic time and enjoy the hottest weather you can get in Helsinki. Thank you.